What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. We got a lot to talk about. The CDL are finally making some moves in terms of roster changes, and that is going to be showing up in challengers. As we have Alluka is getting picked up as a substitute player for Faze Vegas, something that was being rumored for a long time, and now it is official. Alluka even making a point to mention that they still want to take time to play in challengers so that way they can become a better player. Personally, I really like this choice from Alluka. I think it is going to be working really well for him to be playing alongside some of the vets like Simp and Draza, and even 04 and Abuza, who know how to win, who know how to make it really, really far in tournaments, as they did so on the Vancouver Surge last year. So I think that this really does give a really solid opportunity for Alluka to continue to grow, and since he is still going to be playing in challenges under Omit. They were able to strike a really good deal, so Alluka will still be able to get the experience that he needs, as well as getting some reps playing with some of the best to only make him better. And he is showing as one of the really, really strong players as we see in the top KDs of the Challengers Cup going into the first Elite. He has a third place at 1.13, with the other two being Paul X and Standy. Standy is a player that we will be talking about here in just a moment, because Standy has been making a ton of leeway in this current stage in the Challengers team, especially with how Next Threat was playing in the last cup. But also just wrapping up recently, the For Fun Esports organization had their own 3K Invitational in which the Riyadh Falcons Academy were the winners. That was ASIM, QK4B, another player who has been making a ton of progress here. Rupert Skywalker and Roxas, two players. Well, Roxas for sure had a brief stint in the league last year and is now also playing for Challengers. The Riyadh Falcons Academy have been doing a really, really strong amount of progress, as well as just being an overall strong contender in Challengers. So we might be able to see some of these players in the league. I don't quite know. ASIM has been kind of in and out of the league for a long time, so this might be something that sticks. It might not. I don't know for certain, but we will see as time goes on, because we do have the first Elite coming up very, very soon. So it's going to be very interesting to see what teams are going to be coming out on top and how some of these players are going to be cooking going into the first Elite as we get into the 2026 new year. As we look at the top 10 players, these are, we did look at the KDs, but now we just have the top 10 overall rating. Number one, actually a tie for number one is Standy, Alluka, and Paul X. Paul X, a player who was on the Minnesota Rocker last year. And had a brief stint where he said he was going to go pro in Warzone, then pretty quickly came back to multiplayer, and has now been playing pretty good in challenges for Falcons Academy White. Falcons Academy White having a really, really strong roster with both Paul X and Priesta being two of the top 10 players. But then we have Standy coming in at number one. Standy is a player that honestly I really think that he is something that wants to. It really honestly is showing a ton of strength in this game. I think he's got an opportunity to be able to go back into the league and possibly make some changes into some of these mid-tier teams. I don't know how Standy would do necessarily on a top team, but there are a lot of things that we got to be talking about with some of these top CDL teams and some of the things that might need to be happening if they're going to be catching up to Optic, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But the overall rating for each of the players, as brought out by B07 Amateur Stats or at Challenger Stats on Twitter. Overall rating is a calculation between 4 equally weighted ratings: series, hardpoint, search, and overload, all of which are based on 4 equally weighted pieces of data for each category. A full breakdown can be found in their spreadsheets, so they have spreadsheets available. If you want to look at that, you can go to @ChallengerStats on Twitter. You can find them pretty quickly, but it is managed. And honestly, they're doing a really, really great job, so huge shout outs to them for continuing to be bringing out more Challengers information as they continue to build hype for Challengers in what is showing to be one of the best years for Challengers, if not the best year for Challengers here in the CDL era. But looking at these players, there are a lot of really, really strong names on this list, and I immediately borked something up here. So give me one moment while I try and pull this back up here. Here we go. We've got Standy, Alluka, Paul X, Awakening, QK4B, Johnny, Priesta, Exceed, Capsule, and Kips from the Huntsman. We have names from Huntsman. We have the T Bush, P7, Notorious, as well as Falcons Academy and Next Threat. A lot of really, really strong players coming into this next Elite, especially with Alluka still going to be playing under Omit Brooklyn going into the Elite while also being a sub for Faze Vegas. Omit Brooklyn looking to be a very, very strong team, even though Attach and Fellow were exchanging some choice words with each other. Primarily, Fellow was just had some things to talk about with Omit Brooklyn appearing to be a wash team. I don't necessarily think that that's the case. I still think Omit Brooklyn is going to be one of the stronger teams going into the Elite, but there is still, there is the talk. They didn't perform as well as they wanted to in Cup 1 as well as Cup 3. And currently their only real strong player is Alluka. And honestly, looking at some of these, we got the top 10 challenges, KDs. We still don't have Neum on here. Neum has been showing to be a really, really strong player on the Huntsman, but he does have a lot that he still needs to work on. I think the Huntsmen are going to look really, really strong going into the Elite, but obviously, he still does have a ton of work here. Kind of cool to see as well, looking at the KDs. You do have some of the players that are very strong on the KD side, but not necessarily on the top 10. So looking at the rest of it, you've got Capsidal sitting at number 6 on the KD, but he's at number 9. On the overall, Priesta is on both. Paul X is on both. Alluka on both. QK4B is also on both. But you don't have Awakening here as one of the top KD players, but he is one of the top all-time players, or not all-time, but top overall. Fire from T. Bush has one of the best KDs, but is not listed here on the overall. Kips on the overall, but not on the KD. So a ton of overlap here between the two players, not overlap, but a ton of miss and match here, which I honestly really like. Shows that there's a lot more than just the KD. Just because you have the best KD in the game does not necessarily mean that you are the best player. You can even see that with Awakening not even being on this top 10 list, which I think, again, just shows for a lot of the strength of these teams going into this Elite and what we're going to be seeing here. So that's kind of pretty much what we're seeing on the NA side of things. We're going to talk a little bit more about the roster move for Alluka to Faze Vegas here in just a moment, but I do want to step over the other side of the ocean to talking about Cobra. Cobra tweeted out that they are still looking for a team pass for the Dallas Major 1 under Clutch Rain. I'm going to zoom that out so you guys can see that a little bit better. So Lynn's retweeted it here, so they're still working on it. DMs are posted, and then you can see other teams are working, or at least some people are trying to work to help them out. So if you are seeing this and you want to be able to help out Clutch Rain to be able to make it to Miami or Dallas, you definitely should reach out to either Cobra or Lynn's, or just anybody from Clutch Rain to try and help them out. Because honestly, with the drama that has been showing up with the Clutch Rain, specifically on Lynn's side, and the way that things have been getting talked about, and how a lot of things are just looking for this team, it'll be really interesting to see how they're going to be performing on LAN. I think that's what a lot of people have been expecting with a lot of the trash talk that's been going on and the accusations and the drama behind the Clutch Rain's roster, specifically with the Codcaster stuff with Bance, as well as Bance coming out and talking about Lynn's mental health. We're not going to go into too much detail about that, other than just showing that in order for this team, I think, to really show what they're capable of, they're going to have to show up on LAN. So I would definitely recommend that I would love to see them show up on LAN. I think that's going to be something that is going to really show how strong of a team they actually are. I think they have an opportunity to be one of the stronger teams in the league right now, or in challengers, but in order for that to really show up, they got to show up on LAN, and this is going to be a great way to do that. So we'll see if Clutch Rain can get on LAN. I hope it works out. If anybody is able to help out, make sure you guys reach out to Lynn's or Cobra over on Twitter, as well as you can also just reach out on Clutch Rain to be able to help them out. I think it's going to be very important that they are able to get, I think anybody from the team is available as well. So Brezzy and Melko, you can also reach out to them. Just making sure that we can do what we can to get them on LAN, because I do really, really, really want to see Clutch Rain be able to play on LAN. So going back over to the Alluka stuff, with Alluka joining on Faze Vegas, there's now a question as to what we can be expecting with other CDL teams, specifically as Alluka took the stage against Omit Brooklyn, or as part of Omit Brooklyn scrimming against LAT. Omit Brooklyn was actually winning a lot of their scrims against LAT, and there was a lot of rumors saying that LAT should be looking at making a change, and even Octane himself said that Scrap has a bit of an ego and doesn't believe that there's any talent in there, but yet Mercules from last year was showing that that's obviously not true, and that teams have strength. There is talent in challengers, and it just needs to be nurtured under a lot of these pros. And I really think that this is just an opportunity where challengers players, I think Mercules has shown one thing, and that is that put under the right team, any rookie, not necessarily any rookie, sorry, I shouldn't say that, but put under the right team, a rookie can really flourish. You saw that with Mercules. Yes, Mercules was already frying in challenges before he came up to the league last year, but he even said it himself that he doesn't really get nervous when he's playing with those Optic boys because they just make things really easy for him, and they take away a lot of that pressure because he's playing with three very seasoned players, with Dashi, Shotzi, and Hook being three of the greatest players of all time in the league, and I think that just allows for Mercules to be able to just play the game the way he wants to, in the same way Alluka now getting picked up onto Faze Vegas will now also show that same level of strength, as Alluka will be able to just flourish under the leadership of Simp and Draza, and even 04 and Abuza can even help him out a little bit better, and he will just continue to develop, and now could potentially even be the next Mercules. I think if you're Draza, you're definitely going to be a little bit nervous thinking that your spot might get given up to Alluka, but Alluka has even stated himself, he wants to play in challengers, he wants to continue to get better. And if you're a team like LA Thieves, a team that currently is struggling, they weren't performing well in scrims against Omit Brooklyn, you really got to be thinking about whether or not you made the right move by not picking up Alluka. I don't necessarily think they made a bad choice, but they are currently gambling on Kenny being able to perform, and that is something that could spell a disaster for them if they aren't ready to make a move. And right now, there are other people showing up in the league that are playing, or they're showing up really well in challengers, and are even showing to potentially even be a more consistent and more and a better player than Alluka. You can even see Standy being up there in the same level. I don't necessarily think Standy would be the best pickup, but right now they're early enough in the season that changes are a good spot to be able to make. If you're too scared to make changes, you could get chalked early on. As we've seen previously, we almost saw with Optic, they were ready to almost chalk their entire season up and not make a change off of Skies, but thankfully they were able to get Mercules, and that saved their season. Making roster changes could be huge, and if you're a team like LA Thieves, you might be in some serious trouble if you don't think about making a change. So I really think that Alluka here has an opportunity to just show up and be somebody who could force some of these other teams to make a change. Right now, the teams are trying to beat Optic. Optic are currently the only undefeated team in the league, and so if a team is not willing to make a change, then that could spell some major, major trouble for those other teams. So we'll see kind of if Alluka will maybe open up the eyes to the rest of the teams and see what other changes might be coming. Only time will tell as we get into the 2026 year and then we get back started up. I'm excited. I've been feeling kind of that withdrawal from not having any COD too much to watch outside of that For Fun Invitational, so I'm excited to see what more teams are going to be able to do. But that's going to do it for today's video, guys. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe if you're not subscribed already. I know I don't have a ton of subscribers, but we're working on building this up. I want to continue to cover as much COD content throughout the year, and I'm even looking at something to do for the off season. Not quite exactly sure what that's going to look like, but we got a lot of time to figure that out. But thank you guys again. You were loved, you were valued, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. We will see you guys later.